Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we are finally back with another resort tour. I haven't done one of these in a while, but we're back today with another one of these. I'm already at the resort. This is actually the biggest resort as far as rooms go here at Walt Disney World, and we are here at the Pop Century Resort, one of the value resort options here at Disney. This resort opened in 2003. It was supposed to be phase 1 of 2 of the hotels that were going to be part of the Pop Century Resort. And the Pop Century Resort today features decades from the 1900s, featuring the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, like I said, this was supposed to be phase 1 of 2. Phase 2 was actually supposed to feature the 1900s to the 1940s, but that never happened. Actually turned into Art of Animation Resort. I actually have a full video on that if you want to check that out. But yes, the 1950s to 1990s, this is known as the classic years. Parts of this resort, Pop Century, are still called Classic Hall. This is known as Classic Hall, where we're checking in. But anyways, let's head inside, check out the lobby, and explore Pop Century Resort. Here we are walking into the lobby. This lobby isn't going to be one of the biggest lobbies. It's got a very similar layout to how Art of Animation is laid out. Basically, this resort and Art of Animation are pretty much exact duplicates of each other. But over here to the left side is, of course, where the front desk is going to be concierge. You're going to have pictures of each of the decades, so 50s, 60s, all the way to the 90s. We're gonna have different pictures displaying some of the famous things that happened in those decades. We've also got this cool seating area where it looks like an old 1950s style living room with this cool TV in here, just across from the check-in area, so you can hang out and chill while you're waiting for your room to be ready. Also, cool thing inside of the lobby, which I really like, is they have cool props and toys, things that you would have found in those decades. Up here we actually see a timeline, so it starts in 1950 and then it goes all the way down that way to 1990. And if we look over here, we see some cool things that were found during this time. So right here we got some Disney stuff. We've got we've got opening day for Disneyland. We've got Walt Disney Mickey Mouse Club, things like that. Bowling attire. Apparently bowling became famous in the 1950s. Yeah, it's honestly really cool how they got these toys and famous things that happened during this time, put it in here according to the timeline. It gives you a great perspective of what life was like kind of back in the day. Then of course here we see the 1970s, and a big thing that happened in the 1970s, of course, Walt Disney World debuted in 1971. Here's a Life magazine of Disney World opening in 1971. That might be a real thing. October 15, 1971. That might be real, which is pretty cool because in just a few days Disney World will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. We'll see some ticket books for Magic Kingdom, so some really cool things. And as we continue down our way down this lobby area, we're going to run into the Everything Pop. Now this is where your gift shop is going to be, as well as your quick service dining location. And actually, before we head into the store, if we turn left, that's where the transportation is going to be for this resort. So if we head outside to the right, that's where all the buses are going to be that are going to take you to the theme parks. Yeah, here we are inside the Everything Pop gift shop. This gift shop, as well as Art of Animation, are the only ones that I know that have the combined gift shop slash quick service option in it. But you know, pretty nice gift shop. Nothing super special about this one, but nice and spacious. So if we just walk a few steps past the gift shop, this is where the Everything Pop dining hall is going to be. So this is going to be your quick service location for Pop Century. This is actually going to be your only place to eat at Pop Century, besides the pool bar, which we'll see in a little bit. But a very big quick service option, as you can tell. There's also some grab and go things that you can get in the morning, or just whenever you want to get a quick bite to eat. All right, but here we are back outside of the Everything Pop, and go to the right, because over here at Pop Century they've got a really cool arcade, just like they do over at the Art Animation Resort. Really big arcade where everyone can come play at. But just a great arcade, huge arcade. You can spend all day in here if you love video games like this, like I do. I could spend all day in here. But anyways, here in Art of Animation probably have the 2 best arcades on Disney property. And then from the arcade, if we head to the right, we're going to be headed outdoors and we're going to explore the rest of the resort from here. So guys, just like I mentioned, Pop Century Resort is split into different areas. Over here, as soon as we walk outside, we're going to be in the 70s area. We're going to come to this in a little bit. We're going to kind of go in a circle over here. So we're going to start with the 50s and 60s down this side and make our way back towards the 80s and 90s. So like I said, Pop Century is the biggest resort at Disney World. It has like around 2,800 rooms. This is a value resort, so it's very, very popular. A lot of people stay here. A lot of families stay here because it's pretty cheap. It's a value resort and there's a lot of rooms and it's a pretty cool resort too. All right guys, well I made it all the way down to the 50s area. Over here the 50s has its own pool. This one looks to be themed around bowling for some reason. I think bowling was a big thing back in the 50s. If anyone can confirm that, I don't really know. But actually when you look up top on the buildings, we're gonna see certain things that might have been popular sayings back in the 50s. Sock hop, nice wheels, real hip, crazy man, dreamy. I don't know if these were sayings that people said in the 50s, but apparently they did. If you also listen closely while you're walking around, you'll hear some music from the 50s playing around. If we look up at the rooms up here, we see Transitor radio, we see a vinyl disc up here. And just like with all the other value resorts, they have these big massive structures that are sprinkled throughout the resort. So in different areas of the resort, they're gonna have different things that pay homage to that decade. I'm not sure if these are real songs that people could have heard back in the day, but if they were, let me know. So yeah, just another look at this 50s pool. We see it's in the shape of a bowling pin, so that's pretty cool. We got the bowling shoes in the rack up here by the bathrooms. Really doesn't look like there's anyone at this pool right now. The big main pool is over at the 70s. That's going to be a very popular one. So if you want a more quiet one, maybe come to the 50s or one of the other ones. I know there's one in the 90s area. But just like at all of the Disney pools, pretty much, they're going to have ping pong and probably some cornhole. And just like with those big structures that they have, they're going to have a Lady and Tramp statues in the 50s section, because Lady and the Tramp actually did debut in 1955, same year as when Disneyland opened actually. All right, now let's head over to the 60s section. All right, so here we are back in the middle, right where we exited the classic hall lobby area. So that whole side over here, this whole right side, that's all the 50s area. I thought that was 50s and 60s, but over here, the pool, this is actually the 60s area. I thought this was 70s, but this is the 60s. So over here, of course, we've got the big pool. Over here, we've got the pedals. This is gonna be your pool bar. They've got specialty drinks, non-alcoholic drinks that you can get over here. But this pool is actually known as the Hippy Dippy pool. I thought this was maybe the 70s because the hippies, I thought the hippies were in the 70s. Apparently they were 60s. But anyways, we have yo-yos. Apparently yo-yos became very popular in the 60s. Let's see some of the sayings up there. Can you dig it? Peace, man. Peace, love, and happiness. But overall, a pretty decent pool. I don't think this one is as big as the 50s pool, but it looks like there's more things going on over here. There's a lot of people. There's some recreation cast members interacting with the guests. It seems like Play-Doh was popular back in the 60s. I remember playing with Play-Doh as a kid. Play-Doh been around forever. But they also do have a little splash pad area for some little kids who aren't ready to get in the big pool just yet. Of course, we have a Disney character over here. We see Baloo and Mowgli from the Jungle Book, which debuted in the 1960s. You probably know this already, but Pop Century is a Skyliner resort. So the Skyliner does connect over here at Pop Century / Art of Animation. And to get to it, all you have to do is walk by the main pool, by the 60s over here, walk all the way straight, and this is where the connection is going to be. And this is going to connect you to the Caribbean Beach Resort, where you can connect to Hollywood Studios or to Epcot. And if you want, you can make the trek across the bridge right here over to the Art of Animation Resort. And just a side note, this lake right here, this is called Hourglass Lake. So now let's make our way over to the 70s area. But actually, if you walk back over here closer to Hourglass Lake, you're gonna see some signs that are gonna tell you some really cool facts about the decade which you are in. So 1968, the first cash dispensing machine is installed by First Philadelphia Bank, and Hollywood releases 2001: A Space Odyssey and Yellow Submarine. So if you want to learn cool things about the decade, come check it out over here closer to Hourglass Lake and learn some cool facts. Here we are venturing into the 70s era. Over here we've got some cassette tapes, soul of the 70s greatest grooves. Actually, these big structures that you see like this, these are actually the staircases. They just kind of hide the stairs behind these really cool structures. All right, and in the 70s we see it was all about dancing, I guess. A lot of dancing going on in the 70s. We see some high top shoes, whatever these things are. They've actually got a real Twister game that you can play. You just come over here, spin the thing, and play Twister out here, which is pretty cool. Some famous sayings that I see over here are "What's your handle?" "Smile," "Polyester," "Boogie down," "Nice day," and of course right here we see a big foosball setup right here, which I think is really cool. And then they got like a big wheel setup over here. I think in the 70s, like, toys started to become really big or something, because they got a lot of toys in this area. And just past all the foosball guys, we see a big Mickey Mouse telephone set. You know, the value resorts kind of get a lot of hate for being not as nice as some of the other resorts, but I really do love all the statues and everything that they do set up here at the value resorts. There's nothing like this at any of the other ones. You know, it's kind of cool to just come over here and learn about the decades, because I was born in the 90s, 95, so I don't really know much about the decades of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I don't really know a lot about them, so it's cool to kind of learn like what was going on back then as far as like pop culture. Of course, I know like the big significant things that happened back then, but the pop culture things are pretty cool. All right, now we are venturing into the 80s decade. We see Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, of course, become stars of the Toy Story movies. In the 80s, have these big Rubik's cubes up here. I actually had a Rubik's cube. I can never understand how to finish. I know how to get to like one side be a solid color, but I can't do the whole thing. The 80s and the 90s sections are pretty much combined over here. So the 80s is going to be right here, and then the 90s is going to be that building back over there. So they're pretty close together. Some of the big sayings up on the buildings are "totally awesome," "psych," whatever that means. We see Pac-Man is up on the walls. We see break dancers. Yuppies. I'm not really sure what yuppies means. For sure, I know what for sure means. We see a Sony Walkman. I know about Walkman. There was like the iPods before iPods, but over here we do have the character of the 80s who was extremely popular back in the 80s when he came out. Roger Rabbit at one point was thought to have its own land over in Hollywood Studios, but actually over here in this section, this is where we're going to have our last pool. So this is the 80s/90s pool, but this pool over here is themed to a computer. I think this is called the computer pool. We see the keyboard down here. So in the 80s and 90s, this is when computers started to become very popular. But you know, pretty small pool. This is the smallest pool out of the three, I believe. Nothing special. Probably a nice quiet pool when everyone's over at the other one and you just kind of want to break from all that. All right, and here we are, the last area of this resort, the 90s. So it says surf the net. Of course, the internet became popular, whatever. I guess this is when rollerblades took off. See some CDs, DVDs, whatever these discs are. And one of the things that I really like about this section right here, the 90s, is this big laptop that they've got. It doesn't look like it's in great shape. They definitely need to touch this up a little bit. But if you look up closely at the computer screen, you can see some cool things from back in the day. So ABCnews.com has a report that Disney's Animal Kingdom is opening today. Of course, Animal Kingdom opened back in 1998. It actually does have that date on there. Orlando, April 22nd, 1998. I wonder if I actually go to this web address, if it'll pull this up. Let me pull this up real quick. Well, I try to pull it up. It says web page unavailable. I'm sure it was a web page back in the day, but that's pretty cool. I really do like the 90s era of Disney. Like if you look down there, we see the 25th anniversary castle at Magic Kingdom, and now we're celebrating 50th anniversary with the new castle. We see the old school test track. So a lot of cool things. We even see Disney MGM Studios. They hadn't changed its name from Hollywood Studios. It's still called MGM Studios. So yeah, some pretty cool little Easter eggs there in that laptop here in the 90s area. 90s is the smallest of the areas. For some reason, I feel like the 90s should get more love. I feel like it's one of the best decades. They had all kinds of cool things in the 90s. But anyways, that's pretty much all of Pop Century Resort. They say it's Pop Century, but it's actually only half of the century, because art animation is supposed to be the other half of Pop Century, but that never happened. So here we are with the Pop Century Resort, how it is today, and it is still the biggest resort at Disney World with the most amount of rooms. It's not the biggest as far as area, but as far as rooms, this is the biggest. There's no Disney resort with more rooms than Pop Century Resort. So a lot of people love to come over here and stay. Pop Century Resort, it's probably either the most popular value resort or the second most popular behind art animation. But yeah guys, hopefully you enjoyed this walkthrough tour of Pop Century. Let me know what resort you guys want me to do next time. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button down below. If you did enjoy the video, a like would definitely be very much appreciated. And thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.